Because Akufo-Addo started talking about Ghana beyond aid, and then all of a sudden, all hell was let loose. Mahama said, "Oh, we will no longer allow foreigners to trade in gold in Ghana beginning from May 1." And then all of a sudden, the United States said that Ghana is one of the most unsafe countries in the world. But our own people joined in this talking point to start saying something like, professors of economics started saying that the fundamentals have not changed. Don't be carried away. So why do you now suddenly know so much about the city collapsing again? When, as a matter of fact, you did not predict, you, the professor of economics, did not predict that the city will appreciate. Now it's appreciating without predicting. Then you are now predicting that it will depreciate. For an academic, for someone who has time to think and research about these things, it can be very worrying. And the general, some people, investors lose confidence in the economy. So how do you hate your own national currency? Or how do you talk so flippantly about it if you don't have something positive to say? The city was trading fine, you and me, fiscal discipline and other measures. The city is appreciating. Maybe to return to 7 or 8, which will make sense. And you are saying that if it over-appreciates, I'm not an expert in economics, right? Get that straight. But I have some brain, so I listen to what they say. So you are now saying that if the city appreciates too much, what does it mean for city to appreciate too much? That if the city appreciates too much, it can hurt the economy. How will it hurt the economy? That you will not, people will not buy Ghana's products. But how much China can devaluate? Maybe Japan, maybe that helps them. But how much does that help Ghana? How much do we export? People are now talking about buying cars. People who suspended, myself, I lost all the money I saved to buy a car because all of a sudden the city tumbled. 450,000 got lost in weeks. And this is something that everybody is living through. So if the city is appreciated, why can't one city be the same thing as $1? $1, the dollar that some other country prints at will, and then you give them products so that they print their own money and give to you. So these are the kinds of things I'm talking about. And that is why I say the historical injustices, the very success of the historical injustices of slavery and colonialism lies not on its ongoing vestiges in neo-colonialism, neoliberalism and globalization and other means through which the West continue to hold the non-West, especially Africa, on the job. It is not only in that, but precisely the fact that these historical injustices reduce the humanity in us, particularly Africans. Our cultural affairs, our languages, our names are things that we have bought only for you to hear in one of these big churches. Super Sunday. Somebody brought me there some years ago. And it's one of the most early experiences I had in this country. About 1,000 Ghanaian young people were there. And all of a sudden, the pastor was saying, praying for the good of the young people, for prosperity. And then the praying point was a visa to the United States of America. And all of a sudden, we were hearing United States of America, and they were singing like this is the golden, whatever, I don't know. So in other words, slavery has ended, but our mentality keeps taking us back to enslavement. So part of the success of a forum like this, if it succeeds, is for academics. If you are asking how should we think about, such things as reparation. Reparation means, in this particular instance, that we should be able to convince our young people especially to stop looking for visas to other people's countries, especially in the global north. I thank my God that I've been to all these places. And what our people go through there, if you knew, you will not go there. And I challenge any of us who has brothers and sisters in the diaspora, in Europe and North America, please, I challenge you. If you can say that, I will hand over my bank account, everything I have to you. If any member of your family can say, or maybe I should not exaggerate, but I will put down $2,000. If somebody can call a member of their family that lives in Europe or North America, who can say to him or her that I am happy here, if they can say it, they can make money and even achieve some degree of fame in those countries. But if they can say that they are happy, living in the West, please, I will give $2,000 if you make that call now or after, while we are still here. I will give you $2,000, provided I can speak to that person too, and ask that person questions that will answer, for to prove that they are happy in America or the US.
Thank you so much. We're going to go to Ola to answer the same question. I mean, do you have anything to add to what you said?
It's an interesting perspective. I mean, the earlier speaker spoke about Du Bois. He wrote about the double consciousness that inhibits the colonized or the enslaved person. And in many ways he talks about, there's so many ways in which it is difficult to even take stock of what the historical legacies of our interaction with the non-African world has created in us. Whether it becomes standards of beauty that we implicitly even adhere to, whether it's in terms of thought processes, whether it's in terms of valuation of what we hold dear, whether it's respect of the respect culture that we have, persons who perhaps are schooled in Western universities, and how we regard those people. It is all around us. So yeah, judgments and things that we have of ourselves are very much influenced by colonial contacts in many respects. And that would endure not only in terms of how we traditionally think about it, in terms of the structure of economic relations that exist currently. But one of the most important things that I want us to reflect on perhaps is that what defined the initial encounter between the African people and the non-African world. I think that is an encounter that is based on exploitation and plunder. And the question for us is whether or not we can look into our relationship now and still say that exploitation and plunder continues to exist. It is very difficult to walk away and think otherwise, in terms of how we relate to the West, in terms of how they relate to us, whether in terms of culturally, in terms of economically, in terms of intellectually. There's always a dynamic of exploitation that happens in the way in which we interact with ourselves. And this is structured. The world is structured in the ways in which we are perpetually exploited in that regard. And it's going to take a lot of, unlearning to be able to get to a point where the African person sufficiently understands our positioning in terms of this global dynamic of how we are perpetually exploited. In many ways, we're exploited in ways that are inherently blind to us. And that's perhaps the most difficult part. Because even when we are certain, our agents, I'll give an example. One of my intellectual projects is reflecting on the concept of rationality, generally, and how it affects states in terms of the negotiation positions. And so, the example that you gave, that an African leader might go into, say, WTO and say, we are negotiating a free trade agreement, right? And the concept inherent in the free trade agreement is that we are all equal. And so we will sell to you and you will buy, we will buy from you and this, and it feels fair because we are trading on equal terms. But the truth is, our industries, our ability then to be able to market our wares to those economies, the standards by which our products are judged by are not the same that ours are judged by. The ability of mobility, why a person can walk in and say, I'm getting a visa on arrival, when so many of our people can queue at the embassies for so long, disables you to be an equal player in what you are calling a free trade system. But you believe that in negotiating a free agreement, you are doing so by your own consent, rationally, you judge what is good for you. But because you are structured an environment which is inherently inequitable, there's no way in which you can consent there's no way in which consent is ever free in that arrangement. But it's difficult to be able to articulate and think about this more generally, because that's the structure in which you inherit. And to step away and say, we do not want this, there's so much of global media power that is then deployed, and in terms of how American framing typically goes, that there are certain countries that we begin to call the axis of evil, or we might label as being in the camp of North Korea, Iran, or things like that. is the global shaming power of American media. That very quickly you understood and you're made to understand that you must love Ghana, which is an economic darling of the Bretton Woods institution, but you must hate Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe is trying to redistribute land. And inherently, you imbibe it through your cultural upbringing within the society, because very soon you start calling Zimbabwe a dictatorship and you call yours a democracy, even though your life is perpetually undermined by trade policies of the Western world. So there's certain things which we can't, it's like being stuck in a black hole, generally. But there's a comment I want to make in terms of the conversation around reparation, and this comes up quite a bit as a last point. That it is important that we understand that the conversation about reparations is not first about revenge, and first it's not about legal or financial quantification of what reparations is. It is about a moral repair. And that moral repair must ask deep questions of us beyond financial quantification of what that looks like. What does it mean for a young black person, for instance, to grow up in a world where they themselves believe themselves to be beautiful inherently? These are things that money cannot quantify. These are things that you can't put a value on. But our social interaction in terms of our curriculum and so many things that are around us continuously and perpetually undermine the project of reparation. So you give an example of Akufo-Addo before the world stage, which is talking about, the global reparations in many respects. But even our society-wise, how much work have we done to repair ourselves with each other? When you come to Ghana and the conversation about the year of return, right? Anytime you hear Ghanaian politicians talk about the year of return, I cringe. I cringe because we talk about it in terms of, oh, look at how much more dollars we have been able to bring for people visiting Ghana. We are always justifying the year of return in economic language, rather than in terms of the social bonds that we will create, the non-commercial aspects of what it means to link ourselves to the global diaspora from which we have been separated by years and years of slavery and other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Constitution, but it seems like the economic reparation is more of a priority than anything else. So, talking about decolonizing the educational system, the educational content. September. What role does academic research play in supporting the reparations movement? And how can scholars contribute to this discourse?
You have this nice way of framing these open-ended questions that one can get carried away. And so the social role of the university, or the position of the intellectual, the academic, is one of privilege, because all of us are paid through the taxpayers' money to have a degree of freedom, the space to go about inquiring about the society, our society and beyond, other societies, to inquire a bit more deeply about things that at the face level ordinary people will understand in a particular way, or people who are not in academy will understand in a particular way. So there is a research component of being an academic. Most people think of academic in terms of lectureship, lecturers, especially because the majority of our students know us as lecturers, we teach them. But for a lecturer, there is a component where you delve deeper. So that means, in essence, that when you, as an academic, comes into public discussions or discussions that matter to society, including that of reparation or other pressing issues of social and political justice, it means that most of the time, the lecturer may have spent a lot more time reading, researching, traveling, and thinking about those issues more than the ordinary person, provided that is an area the academic has an interest. And I have some interest on the issue of reparation, having myself authored a book, an article on that subject, a little bit more indirectly, on aid, international aid. So the academy who wants to intervene or who wants to make a contribution in the reparations movement must do that from a much more nuanced, measured approach. In other words, you are not going to follow the bandwagon. You are going to have to think a lot more because you are trying to actually influence public discourse, public policy, because that is the very harnessing of research and lectureship. If you, as a scholar, are able to influence public thinking. So that's one way of approaching that question. And the wider ramifications of that lies in the very fact that he was saying it a little bit earlier, that there is a lot of things out there, especially on social media. But let's not even waste our time on social media. In the mainstream media, the BBC I consider one of the most lying international media you can ever think about, because I have witnessed events that I was there and witnessed what happened. And when the BBC reported it, you want to have a heart attack. So the Western media tell a lot of lies, all of them, without exception. And even when they are not lying, they are thinking within certain boxes, the kinds of things I was speaking about earlier. They were thinking within certain paradigms, certain sources, epistemic sources, so that it's so difficult to shake them out of that. So they think, like Nelson Mandela will say, that for what they hate, you must hate. Their enemies must be your enemies. What they like, you must like. And so that is how the news framework, the news items you read and hear are framed. So if you are thinking of reparations, first thing concrete, if you are thinking as an academy and you want to, like I said, influence public discourse, you should be able to separate them into maybe 3 categories. What needs to be done? Where in that area you might include things like cash transfers, but the problem with cash transfer, as in the article I wrote on the politics of aid, the problem with international aid is that it is never free, and it is always in the last analysis and against the economic development of the country that receives international aid. Because what it does, the nature of aid is fungible. What it does is that it doesn't necessarily mean that if an international aid agency gives you money for hospital, it doesn't mean that it will not free money for you to buy arms, maybe if you are an autocratic regime, to eventually use that weapon against your people. So foreign aid is a very tricky affair, so that those who give the aid at one point have more need to give the money. IMF, the World Bank, they have more need to give the aid than you, the recipient country, has to receive the aid.
Right.
A lot of people don't know this. Okay, so in order to round up, what I'm trying to say, in terms of the discourse on reparations, you have to think of it in terms of what needs to be done, what has to be undone, and what has to be stopped. And we have to be able to make these separations and present the issues in that way.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manda. Okay, JL. So, leading you spoke about cultural reparations. So, leading an organization focused on cultural preservation and education, how can organizations such as yours support the reparations dialogue?
Thank you, Pamela. So, I want us to do a very quick exercise. You just pick your phone, go on your browser, any browser you use, and then type the question, what is the percentage of Wikipedia content about Africa right now? In just a minute, just type what percentage of content do we have on Wikipedia about Africa. So my browser is telling me, and then this is actually AI telling me that as of April 2024, there's only 2.69% of the total content on Wikipedia about Africa. Can you imagine? 2.69% of content on Wikipedia is about Africa. And African contributors actually make up just 1.91% of the overall contributors on Wikipedia. And then we are here talking about reparations. right? We have said from Ambassador's Prep and then from what Oliver said, from what Dr. said, that we are tired of the pity party. We do not want the sad stories about Africa anymore. We want the good stories. We want the survival stories. We have brave people that have fought through, that have done great things that, that have to be amplified. But then, this content is not online. If anyone even has this knowledge, it remains with him. And if it remains with you, then it doesn't make much of an impact, because how does the world see it? You get it? So we want to change the narrative. And if we do not speak up, then how does the narrative change? So that is what we want to do as OFWA, that we tell the African story, that we as Africans tell our own stories by ourselves. He mentioned the foreign media, exaggerating our stories, the things happening here and all of that. But if we had built our media to a certain repute that is also accepted worldwide, then we can also actually tell our own story for people out there to know what's happening in our own voice. This is what we want to do as OFWA. This is what we do, and this is what we seek to do more, that we tell our stories. No longer just the slave trade and the Africans that were colonized and all of that. This would mainly be the kind of information you find online if you research on this particular theme that we are talking about. But this time around, we want to amplify Africa. We want to talk about the things that we've done. There are so many heroes of Africa. I think just this week I saw a page of an old book by Nana Ajiman Prempe and the story there. And I'm wondering, why is this story not on Wikipedia? Why is it that people only see the stories that the whites have written about us? Okay, and when they write, of course they write, they see from their own lenses, so they write from their own perspective as well. And nobody would want you to be greater than they are. They will not write your stories to reflect what you actually wanted to reflect. But if we have only 1.91% of overall contributors on Wikipedia being Africans, then who should tell the story? So what I want to say is that OFWA has a charge to digitally decolonize Africa. That's what we say, to decolonize Africa digitally. So all this good knowledge that we have, we want to put them online. Usually you face the challenge because you need reliable sources to put these online. Some lecturers are not ready to release their research. Certain organizations like cultural heritage organizations are not ready to also give out the information because, as Oliver mentioned, they are always thinking of what economic impact it brings to them. So as long as it's not bringing them money, then they do not really think of the image of Africa out there. Okay, but if we do that, then we continue to be colonized. Because if we say that we have good stories to tell and we are not telling it, then it's not right. So here at OFWA, this is what we do. We work with a lot of contributors across Africa to get African content online. We are trying to preserve the African heritage online. And so we invite every one of you to join our community, especially if you're in the media, in academia, activism, law, those of you that have research, that have data that we can actually cite as sources for writing our articles online. We invite all of you to join us in digitally representing Africa online, and by that, decolonizing Africa as well online.
Thank you so much, Nail. We can't have this conversation around this theme without a diasporan voice. So, hi Rachel, can you hear me? Yeah, we can't hear you. Okay. So, as a member of the African Heritage.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect, I can hear you.
So, as a member of the African diaspora, how do you connect with the reparations movement? And what significance does it hold for diaspora communities in terms of identity and justice?
Well, thank you very much for that question, and also part of this forum. I do stand here today as a representative of the diaspora, but also as a son of Africa. I think for everyone to be recommended, just there you go. Oh, and I keep in mind, and I'm always fully aware of the fact that I carry generations of resilience, pain, and the basic and partners as an African in the diaspora. Not only that, but for many of us in the diaspora, reparations, I believe, are not simply about financial compensation. They are about restoration of dignity, of memory, of agency. For me, they are about reclaiming stolen future and redefining who we are, not through the lenses of oppression, but through the lens of truth, pride, and also collective healing. So, the panelists have shared some really great insight about how we can throw a positive light on reparation and how to also have a much better collective effort towards this. And I think reparation should start from an internal process of fostering internal or personal relationships among African countries, growth, self-governance, respect, and overall growth before we can even look at external reparation. For instance, you look across the African continent, only 7% of trade is done among African countries. And this is a very systematic thing. It's something that's been there for hundreds of years. We don't want trade with external partners outside of Africa that we do internally amongst ourselves. It is harder for an African to travel to another African country than it is to actually leave Africa. So again, you look at some of these dynamics and some of these bigger issues, and we have to bring this scope back to us. How can we actually fix some of these challenges internally to ensure that even amongst ourselves, we are fostering better growth, better relationships, better self-governance, because without that, you cannot ask an external institution or entity to give you anything, whether it's respect, whether it's self-governance. And I think one of the panelists has shared how much external influence we have, from our economy, from governance. It's something that we need to really start looking internally. How can we grow as a unit? How can we foster everything that we need to be self-reliant, self-dependent? And I think it brings in scope a very different focus when we throw that light on us and ourselves, because that's the part of this whole reparation process and conversation that we can control. What we do internally amongst ourselves, whether it's through education, whether it's through our economy. These are the things we can really work on every day through governance, through private institutions. And I believe once we get to a place where we have a much better and deeper understanding of how to rectify some of these internally, then we can actually look for all the external factors and how we can bring that into a much bigger foray of conversation and resolution.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. We're about to draw this session to a close, but before that I have a question for Jael. What future projects does OFWA envision to further the cause of reparations and cultural preservation?
Can you hear me? Okay. In terms of project, what I would say is that our goal currently is to amplify the ones we have now, because we haven't attained the full impact we seek to attain. So for context like Africa WIKI Challenge, last year we had 1,000 editors joining. Our goal is to keep going on one by one, getting more Africans to actually tell our African story. And actually our priority now is on partnerships with relevant institutions, which has been our challenge over the years. As I said before, and as all the panelists have said before, most institutions in Africa only care about money. All right. Okay, so we need to partner with you. This is the goal. And I think that most people do not also understand volunteerism here in Africa. And so they do not understand why they should dedicate their time to sit behind their computers or their phones to write stories about Africa and not make money out of them. All right, we've held several training sessions for professionals in the media, in the arts and film industry and all of that, trying to document all of these things online, but they feel like we cannot release our work to you because we will not get money from it. You know, but most of the time, people are not thinking of that greater impact, or should I say people are not as passionate about this as we are. So the goal for us is to gradually decolonize the minds of people for now, and get more and more people to be involved in these things. Get more partners, get more institutions to understand what we are doing, because some of them do not understand. You tell them about this thing and all of that, and in the end, it's still the same. So what do we get from this? What you get from this is that we represent the organization in the right context, just as you want it online. What you get from it is that most people out there that now go online to search for information about Africa do not only find the pity stories, but they find impact stories. But people do not care about the impact stories being there, they care about the money coming to the pocket. So I'm glad that we have Oliver, who is an activist here, we have Doc, who is a researcher here, we have the people in the diaspora also here. And gradually, as we all understand and we all get to send this information across, I believe that more and more people will join the movement and help amplify the African voices as we speak. So that is what I would say. What I would say is that whoever is here, whoever has been invited to be here, we didn't just invite you. It's actually a way of us trying to work with you. And so we are hoping that after hearing everything that you heard, you open your doors to us when we come to you, to partner with you, to help us achieve this dream of digitally representing Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ayala. Now, yes. Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you for your contribution. Money follows value. That should be one of your, I'll give that to you. Money follows value. So when you give people value, when you add and augment their life, they're very happy to pay for that. These are right? Money follows value. And as brother has said, both brothers, the Euro Gentile mind has stolen from us our character of Ubuntu. Africa is an Ubuntu place, but now we commercialize their capitalists, their own something. But just from a business standpoint, just strictly business, money follows value. So when you give value, when you teach something online, or you're sharing something that someone needs, people can pay. You don't have to pay $1,000, they can pay $20. But if you get a million people, give you $20. So just that can be part of your selling. Money follow this value.
Greetings, everyone. I was just listening at this whole panel, and it was a lot said. And the things that were said are things that we hear quite often when we're in atmospheres like this. But the situation still remains the same, and we have to ask the question of why. Being from America, coming to Africa, understanding the greatness of Africa, understanding that we have to make the first or the original great again, which is Africa, understanding that all of the other things that are outside of Africa are the copycats, but Africa has adopted itself as being a copycat. My problem with hearing a lot of things when we're in conferences and things of this sort is that the truth of what needs to be told of how is always the thing that is eliminated. There's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of people from the diaspora as well as people in Africa that have the understanding of what needs to be done. But the movement is not a lot of times, how can I say it? It's not genuine. A lot of people have motives behind the reasons why they do things. And in order for things to really change, I heard the brother online say that it has to start from within Africa. But I want to take that starting within on another level of not just starting within Africa, but with starting within yourself. One of the things that my high school alma mater, our alma mater theme was, if it is to be, it's up to me. And if it is to be, it's up to me is a statement that says, even when others are not, I still have to. And even when others are not, I still have a responsibility. Even when others are not, I'm still accountable. And even when others are not, I know better, so I have to do better. So I would just want to leave a message to Africa today that in order to make Africa great again, Africa has to see the value of Africa as well as Africans and the resources that's within Africa. Instead of going outside to search what's already within, figure out how to deal with bringing the unity of the Africa all over the place instead of being separate. Because unfortunately, even in America, a lot of the people that come from Africa, they're in competition with each other. When you come to Africa, I see competition with each other. But just think what you can get accomplished if you work with Africa as a whole, understanding that the resources that Africa has is the most rich. This is not the third world, but that's the mentality that has been adopted. Africa is the first world. And because of all of the things that have been mistaught and adopted, now we have to divorce those things and restart over and really start teaching people what's true. But you have to have a heart to really want to learn something about yourself. You have to have a heart to really want to see something different. And you have to have a heart to know that Africa was first and Africa is going to be last. So we have to make Africa great again. And the only way that we can do it is starting individually and then coming together collaboratively.
Thank you. One more question or comment?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My name is James Clark. I'm the Communication Director for Pan Africa Ghana. Please, What I want to say is that Pan-Africanism or African migration into Africa and the world and the diasporans coming down with volunteerism, it is not something that we, the Africans or the Ghanaian youth, are not interested in. But the fact of the matter is, when the child is hungry, when the boy is hungry, when the father or the mother is hungry, how do they become volunteers? They would not. You understand? So please, I like what my sister just said. Africa has been the first. They are trying to tell us we are not the best. Let's try and put ourselves together and make it the best. And also, please, those Africans that are in the diaspora, don't just come with just volunteerism, with seminars and other things. Come with investment. Just this morning, I was looking at the gold manufacturing companies across the world, and Ghanaians were producing over 200 and something thousand tons of gold. That means we are rich. South Africans who are Africans and they have the whites with them, or some of the blacks with them, they come to Ghana and they look at where there are irrigations. The youth in those communities, they are hungry. So let's go to the hinterlands. Let's build farms. Let's build cattle farms, tomato farms, rice farms, and the youth will get something to eat. When they are filled in their stomach, and we convince them to do volunteerism by training others, by taking them to other places to groom others, I believe we will see the benefit and potential in volunteerism. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One recurring theme that I've noticed in the discussion is the need to decolonize, the need to reset our minds, our mentalities, to rewrite our story, to reset our minds to know our value, to shift our perspectives, and to hold ourselves accountable to write our own stories. And I think that is really important for all of us to learn. Now, we're going to go for the concluding remarks, all of you. I'm going to start with Richard. Can I have your concluding remark as we bring the panel session to a close?
Can you hear me? Excellent. I hope you can hear me on your end. But I think we've made some really great comments and given some really great feedback today. I would like to say, for diasporans or people in the diaspora, whether it be from Africa, people in the diaspora, or born in the diaspora, reparations are deeply personal. It's basically a weight of inherited wounds, either from our forced displacement, the erosion of our culture, the centuries of systematic justice. It makes reparation a very personal thing. And reparation is not just a matter of correcting the historical wrong, it's an affirmation of our humanity. It provides for us a framework where we can reconnect with our roots, rebuild our economic foundations, and also reclaim our cultural identities. And for many of us in the diaspora, it's about the power to tell our own stories on our own terms, and to ensure that our children will inherit pride and not just the pain that we have with us. So I think these conversations are always positive, they are always good. It helps us redirect the focus on us and what we need to do and what we can do better. So I encourage it, and like one of the panelists shared, these are things that we need to start working on internally to ensure that we can drive this focus and this force in the right way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Now we can have Oliver's concluding remarks.
Thank you. If there's anything I'm going to end on is the thinking around the urgency of the conversation. I think one of the things which we are all cursed with is our inability to appreciate that time does not bend to our scale of justice. And by that I mean there's been a history, there's been centuries to get us where we are now. The projects what we are doing and what the conversations we are having, we are only contributing to unraveling the hurt and also the vestiges and the effects of what, you know, slave trade and colonial contact has done to us. That project is only beginning. The conversation we are starting and having now is laying the foundation for reflection for generations to come. So it may seem like change is not happening now and in our lifetime, and so many of the things we talk about don't seem like they're moving at a pace at which feels fast enough for us. But we have to view our role as part of a continuum in history. That we are doing this now and laying the block for others to build upon what we are doing. So every time we are having this conversation, it is not a useless conversation because it hasn't directly materialized in our lifetime. If we do that, we are centering history around ourselves and our own perspective, but to understand that we have something to contribute, and that too is okay. And let us build upon that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jael, your concluding remarks, please.
Okay, so what I would say is that reparations go beyond just return of artifacts. I know that we are excited about it, and now they are returning the things they stole from us and all of that and displaying them for people to come see. What are we doing with those things? We need to use these things to tell our stories, because there are stories behind each and every object or each and every artifact. And if we are not allowing ourselves to put those stories out there, and they still just remain in the shelf, in a way, we are still colonized. Okay, so what I would say is that I encourage everyone, partners, allies, collaborators, anyone at all, to help us build a digital legacy for Africa. And so give all the information. Those of you that have done research, release the information. Those of you that have artifacts that tell stories, tell the stories to us. Let us put them online. Let us create a beautiful image and legacy for Africa digitally.
Thank you. And very briefly, Dr. Speaker, the concluding remarks.
Very quickly. Thanks, Pamela. Just a quick response to his earlier comment. Ghana is unfortunately actually a very poor country, but an incredibly resource-rich country. So you have to be able to make that decision, especially as a young man. Your country has got a lot of resources, but you really don't get anything. Canada, Japan, no less, said that Ghana takes 3.8% of the proceeds of gold. It's all over there. He said it on live television, and nobody has challenged him since he said that. So we are not getting the money that we are supposed to get from our resource-rich country. But to close, I have two recommendations. One at the macro level, one at the micro level. And I'll make them, I promise you that, I'll make them very simple, in practical terms. Please, at the macro level, let us remove the visa restrictions. Nothing will happen. South Africa recently removed visa restrictions for Ghanaians. The foolish talk before that, permit my strong language, was that if South Africa were to remove visa restrictions for Ghanaians, the whole of Ghanaians will go and live in South Africa. How many of you have now gone to South Africa if you don't have business there? So please, our government should remove, Aliko Dangote said that for him to, he needs just one or two visas to visit the rest of the world, Europe and North America. But in Africa, how many visas did he say he needed? About 30 of them. And he's the richest man in Africa. And he said to do business in Africa is frustrating versus doing it in Europe. That's why sometimes to take a flight from Abuja is more expensive than to take a flight from here to London. It's all madness. So please, let us remove the visa restrictions. And even though Gaddafi has been killed, let us pursue a single African currency. That is a harder one, but at least we can remove the visa restrictions. Then at the micro level, the one that all of us can do. Because all my writings, or 90% of my writings are decolonization and Africanization. And I don't want to wait till heaven to see some changes as a result of these things that I've been writing. I want to see, that's why I relished an opportunity like this to talk directly to the people that we have been writing about. Please, the small ones you, Pamela, can do. All of us here can do that. When you get a new, what do you call it? Somebody who is asking you out, please don't go to eat pizza or go to a Ghanaian restaurant or at least an African restaurant. Go and patronize our own local restaurant, our own industries. Go and buy our own made in Ghana, even some Western clothing. Some of them are made in Ghana. The kente, unfortunately, is now being produced in Netherlands. That's part of the problem of neo-colonialism. So go and look for the products that are made in Ghana. Visit the malls less frequently. Go and buy from the market women in Ghana, in Medina and Mokala. Go there and buy. It's dirty. Some of my friends and colleagues, students say, oh no, that place is too noisy. But I go there all the time and I have not died. And I have not stopped being a lecturer because of that. So buy local products. And please stop calling it another small one you can do. Stop calling it traditional marriage. And then after that you go and do wedding. No. There should only be one marriage. And that one is the one that we wear our local and do when your father and mother hand you over. You don't need the pastors or the reverend father to validate your marriage. So marry in our own traditional way. Heaven will not fall. Because they will give you certificate. There is no need to do white wedding. And I don't know how. You don't need to dress like a capitalist nigger. You don't. I don't know. It's simple. I don't want to go more than that because there is limited time. But please do Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much to all our panelists. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to our programs officer, Dixon, to give us an overview of the Africa WIKI Challenge. So, please. Thank you. A big round of applause.
The contest is the African contest. The contest is the African or African WIKI Challenge. Somebody just asked me, what is it about? It's a Pan-African writing and editing context on the most free you can think about encyclopedia in the world. That is a Wikimedia platform. So it is with great enthusiasm that I welcome you again to this briefing. African WIKI Challenge has been in session since 2021. We have been contributing our best. In 2021, we did a launch of our landmarks. I don't know how many of them you have visited, but the knowledge, the history of all these landmarks, documented them. So you can find photos, you can find rating articles, world research, and also reference that you can read about. We did 2022, we did projecting African culture, specifically on our culture. In 2023, we did focus on Africa Central Continental Free Trade, I beg your pardon. And this was very proud. We had the African Free Trade Continental Secretariat participating in this launch. We also had 2024, we did Educate Africa on education. Our problems, our challenges, quite unique when we tell our stories and train our young ones. So we did a story on that. This year, as you already know and preview of, we are doing the reparation movement, and it's reclaiming our narrative, justice for Africans and the diaspora through reparations. And we do this yearly to align with the AUC as exposed in the Agenda 2023. Now, what do we seek to do? We seek to encourage a lot of people, just as you can, anybody, just the interest and the skill to edit and reference and be able to contribute in word, in pictures, in videos, trying to tell our story that centers on this theme. One of the things that we need to also do, or we want to do, is all that we are fostering communities and collaborations. There are agencies, there are institutions here, and we look forward to connecting with you on a more collaborative and partnership level, how we can expand this thing and bring it better. They are open to do that. Expanding our reach and incorporating African content is very, very important. So I'm here to tell our viewers joining us online, this is a hybrid event, so a lot of us are joining online and they are enjoying the content here, we are sharing and the input you are bringing on board. A round of applause for them too, our online audience. Yes. So just as we say, it is open to all Africans first of all. We have Rwandans, Chad, we have Botswana, we have people from Nigeria, all of them are contributing. They are telling their own native stories as shared on the platform Wikipedia. Now how to sign up? It is simple. You need a little bit of skill, but we as Open Foundation West Africa is open to teach you, to guide you in how you can edit. It's just putting information out there, but you need a certain level of skill. Not a hard skill, yes, it's a soft test skill, as we put it, where you can be able to document in your own small way, as is legal, it is pharmaceutical. How can you tell your African story using the industry you belong to? So you sign up, you create or improve already articles that are an avenue you can use, and also upload on media. So we are going to have a quick discussion on how you can upload, how you can edit, how you can, the mistake you need to not to do as well. Then you attend training sessions. You're going to open our doors and virtual platforms for training sessions for people to join, learn how to edit, learn how to keep and also share your inputs as far as the theme is concerned. There will be workshops, there will be webinars, and all these are programs that are geared towards helping all of us that we have listened to these inspiring stories to contribute. Now, what we say on the prize is that while the true reward lies in contributing to Africa's digital footprint, we also offer incentives. So the real goal is not an incentive, but the impact the writing and contributions will make. But our incentive for you is that the first prize is going away with $10,000. A round of applause. $10,000 for the writing contest. The quality, the impact, as it aligns with the theme, that is what we want. First prize, $10,000, it is equivalent to $830. Now the dollar is coming, so it might be the Ghana cedis for if you want it. Yeah, so second prize, $6,000 cedis is going for the second prize, and equivalent in dollars will be $198. The third prize is 3,500 Ghana cedis going for the third prize, and the dollar equivalent will be $290. Approximately $300. And because we are also sensitive, we have a special program for Shine Her Light, that spotlight the woman. Africa cannot do away with, do we agree with that? Africa cannot do away with our women. So we spotlight women, also share or also highlight women contribution. So the top female contributor is going with 4,000 Ghana cedis, 4,000 Ghana cedis. And the equivalent is $332. And then the best photo upload on Wikimedia Commons is going with 4,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent $332. So just as I earlier indicated, this is a contest, this is a challenge, this is an inspirational move that we are putting out there. All of us, whether your industry, whether your profession, you can tell the African story. And this year's Africa WIKI Challenge is a platform to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dixon. It's now time for the official launch of the contest. I'm going to invite the panelists to come up stage. So, Oliver, Dr. Amba, please come up stage. I'm also going to invite the keynote speaker, Dr. Tony Lack, to come up on stage. And